Howdy, everyone, and welcome to Wild Wild Weiss, the community podcast for Calgary Weiss Schwarz. I'm today's host, Igor Squatslav. With me today are AnzuP and Slowbro. AnzuP is the main judge and organizer for Weiss Schwarz events in Calgary, as well as the author of the Brutal Savage Band series on our blog, Wild Wild Weiss. Slowbro is one of Calgary's stronger players and has hosted a bunch of online tournaments back in 2020. So, how y'all both doing?
Good.
Yeah, pretty good myself. Just a little bit tired from my practicum, but I'm finishing all that tomorrow, so I'm good to relax for the holidays.
Man, you get almost a whole month of holidays. That's awesome.
Pretty much, yeah, it's pretty good.
It's longer than what I get.
Yeah, no kidding. Currently, it's WGP season, so Anzu, I know you already have your invite. Have you had a chance to get one as well, Slowbro?
No, like I said, I've been pretty busy over the last few weeks, and I kind of wanted to play at Sentry just because, like, I want to play with people I know, so haven't really done anything.
Fair enough, fair enough. And what do you use to get your invite, Anzu?
I play a standby Nijigasaki. Pretty standard build. I don't run the level 0 promos because they're hard to get.
Yeah, and speaking about Weiss Grand Prix, on December 7th, a few weeks after the Japanese tournament wrapped up, Bushiroad updated the ban list to remove or temper cards from the game deemed too powerful. Based on the strong showing of Symphogear and Kaguya-sama Love is War, decks that showed up in Top Cut 4 more often than their total representation in the tournament would suggest, it was widely believed that they would get hit by the ban hammer. To the surprise of very few, those two decks received new restrictions. Mushoku Tensei, another strong deck in the current competitive field, underperformed and avoided restrictions. However, there were some surprises, primarily Datalive, which converted to Top Cut at a level consistent with its overall representation, received further bans. More surprisingly, however, was Action Kamen getting completely unbanned. Action Kamen is a card that was immediately banned on release due to the fact that it seemed like a likely obvious print error. However, the day that some thought would never come has arrived. Action Common is free. Additionally, Cinderella Girls, Monogatari, and Haruhi also saw additional cards come off the ban list. Here's a full list of all the changes, starting with the new restrictions. We're going to start with Sinfigure, which receives its first ever restriction after 9 years in many sets. From the following cards, you may choose to play one in your deck. The 0/0 Amalgam Chris, which is a card that allows you to look at the top 4 cards of your deck, select a character after discarding a card. 3/2 Amalgam Shirabe, which is the card that does the burn and can also propagate another level 3 that has the Mocha effect, and they work on the same climax, a very powerful combo. Holy Chant Kirika, which is the level 0 that's required to use the Iglima event, and also allows you to bond said event, and ditch a climax to salvage another climax. And finally, 0/0 Energetic Hibiki, which is a fantastic clean cut card. Kaguya-sama Love is War has gained itself a from 3 choose 1. You may choose to play one of the following. The 0/0 Serious Showdown Between Geniuses K, which is another really, really good clean cut card. 0/0 Supreme Bliss Chica, which allows you to pump power to said clean cut, and I Bestowing Courage, which is a card that bounces back to your hand when you play a any climax, but standby is usually where it's used to give something power as well as salvage. Datalive has its existing ban tightened. Instead of being part of the from 3 choose 1 restriction, you may now only play 2 copies of Terrible Smile Kurumi. On top of that, the choose restriction is now from 4 choose 1, including 1/1 a Spring Moment Yoshino, a very powerful anti-standby card that at the start of your opponent's attack phase, you can pay 1, stand this card, stand Yoshino, stand another character, and swap their positions. And when it is reversed by a character that has a higher level than it, Yoshino can send said character that reversed it to the bottom of the deck. Also added was the For the Sky and the Sword Toka, which is the card that bounces back to hand when you play a standby, and also a Brainstorm, which is a very nice piece to Datalive. And it joins the 1/0 My Little Shido event, which gives you 3 options to use on a 1/0 event, and the 1/0 School Uniform Toka that allows you to look at the top card of your deck and leave it there or push it on bottom when your opponent's character is reversed on your turn, and also pumps power on the off turn. Datalive has been pretty heavily restricted. However, that's the end of our new restrictions. Let's look at what's getting loosened. Idolmaster, Cinderella Girls, and the Monogatari series are now free. All restrictions on those sets are gone. Idolmaster can again play Rin Shibuya and on play look at top 4, choose a blue character, and ditch a card from hand. And Loves Horror Kome, look at top 4 for a climax, at hand if you did pitch a card. And that can all be in the same deck. Monogatari is allowed to play both the level 3 Hachikuchi that allows you to soul pump a character and give cancel burn, and the stock charging Hanakawa 2/2 in the same deck. Love Live Sunshine sees Aozora Jumping Heart Mario Hara come off the from 4, choose 1 restriction. Mirai Ticket Rico, Natural Aquarium Ruby, Water Blue New World Mary remain on the restriction. Mirai Ticket Yo, the very nice burn combo character, remains limited at 1 copy. Additionally, the Fate series sees the healing event level 3 Close Friends come out from 5, choose 1 restriction put in place to restrain the Rider deck that won the 2019 WGP. 2 very surprising changes, ones that I thought would never happen, have occurred. Action Kamen from Crayon Shin-Chan is now unrestricted, and Haruhi players may have 1 copy of World of Faded Colors in their decks instead of none. Both of these cards were mentioned in the Brutal, Savage, and Banned History of the Banned List series by AnzuP. So, now that we've introduced the changes, how do you think these added restrictions affect the metagame? And let's start with Symphogear. What is your read on Symphogear?
Sinfigure had a very strong showing at the Nationals. 6 out of 16 decks played Sinfigure, and Sinfigure is also the winning deck of this year's WGP for the Nationals. Even though Sinfigure has been around for many years, it's really just this one set that's pushed Sinfigure to an absurdly high level of play. This ban list hits the EP, hits the level 0 tools, hits Chris. So besides Chris, you actually have to think about which card you want to play from the 4 choose 1. Because Chris is kind of on his own. So if you want to play the combo, if you want to keep playing the Shirabe Kirika combo level 3, the only choice you really have is to keep the 3/2 Shirabe. Because otherwise you don't have access to Shirabe, you cannot play the combo anyway.
Yeah.
Since now that you've lost the 0/0 Kirika, you have to play the weaker combo route. So instead of playing the Igarima combo, you now have to play the Shushagana combo route. Which, of course, now you have to play the 0/0 Shirabe instead. And again, that's a fine way to go around this ban list, in my opinion. However, the combo itself is slightly weaker than the current combo that we have.
Mhm.
So, to be fair, I think the biggest loss is actually on the 0/0 Chris. Because number one, now you have lost the main source of mill to fill the 1/0 Kiriko combo that you played. And there are less ways to collect combo pieces for the finisher, because it's harder to run the 1/0 Kiriko combo. So it makes the decks much less stable and much weaker than before.
One thing that's funny though is that in running Soul Shaganaga package instead of the Kirika, you are getting draw filter on your level 0, which it's not as good as the Chris, which is just a straight Akatsuki effect. You at least kind of fix for that.
0/0 Chris is like huge for how
It's huge.
stable the deck is, because this is a nice Akatsuki. The pay to salvage also helps because the Symphogear deck is not very stock heavy, so you have like room to spend stock. So sometimes you want to pay 2 to salvage. That's great too.
What's the new package?
So the new package is very similar. You instead of playing the Igalimba combo route, which starts from the 0/0 Kirika, because the 0/0 Kirika searches the events by ditching a character, lets you salvage character, does other things. You have to play the 0/0 Shirabe to search for the other route, the Shagana route instead. They're similar, that you can also search from it, but the whole package itself is not as strong than the original package.
I think one of the strong points about Symphogear and why it was like one of the decks that was like kind of almost reaching tier 0 status is like just how resource efficient the entire like early play engine was, because it all starts from 1 card. Your bonder can get the event, and the event like sends the bonder to memory, but then the bonder comes back, so you can like loop it turn after turn. And triple level 3 only costs 3 stock, and 2 of them draw you cards, and you could choose to heal or draw on the last one that you summon. Usually you would go for 2 draws and the heal on the last one. So 3 stock for all that, Mocha combo, and an optional burn 2, and you could do it turn after turn. That's like what made it really ridiculous. So I'm not sure if like the new package can like live up to the same standard.
Don't think it can. Number one, you've lost the 0 Chris, which helps you with that. So a lot of people have gone. I've looked at some of the deck fixes for that. A lot of people have went back to the 4x, the red Ignite module, just so you can search and get cards in your hand. Because again, when you play the 3/2 Shirabe, you do have to have the other 3/2 in your hand. So having cards in your hand is now a little bit tougher without the Chris to help you out. The Hibiki, losing the Hibiki is not the worst. I mean, the tap 1/5 really kind of helps because you can now you can use that to go over the Kanbaru profile because you can push it over 14/5. But again, not the biggest problem. Not having the canon version of the Sex Self return tab profile is not the worst. Of course, it's nice to have. So a lot of stability is kind of gone. It's not that the deck is completely nerfed, in my opinion, but it's definitely much weaker than before.
Yeah, for sure.
Looking at some of the color text, like the Nationals winning build in Japan, basically plays a one of a 3/2 Carol that is just there for stock washing. Do you think color fixes like that just disappear from the deck?
Is that also green?
No, that one's red.
I think it doesn't matter that much. You're still gonna play red, mainly because of the new deck. Don't really see any other good way to go around losing the Akatsuki besides you have to play the Ignite module. So Ignite module is red, so might as well have some red cards, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of incredible that for a set like Symphogear that's had at least 5 releases that we've lost the Akatsuki and we're going to an event module to keep up the mill. It kind of blows my mind a little.
Chris is just that good of a card.
Yeah, that card's really good. Also, I
Yeah.
think it's weird of how they went about the ban. Like,
I think that just shows how strong the set is. Like you said, it was getting close borderline to like a tier 0 set, right? So, and it made such huge splash. Like again, 6 out of 16 decks in nationals, in just half a year. So I feel like Bushiro wants to stop a repeat of a summer of Nisekoi, of summer of Toaru that has happened before, where it just goes rampant, and then everybody's playing it. There's no point playing any other decks. So I mean, Symphogear didn't get to that level, but it was starting to like creep into that region. And Bushiro just want to like put the foot down, just say stop. And of course, that also ties into a little bit of how Bushiro has changed their ban list structure. Because again, instead of a twice a year, we now move into a 4 times a year. Of course, the winter and the summer ones are the ban restrictions, and then they will ease it off in the spring and autumn or adjust accordingly. So this is the reason why we see like this set, the other 2 sets that's getting hammered down. We see that they get, a little bit, the restrictions a little bit more strict this time. However, I feel like that's because they're giving them a little bit of room to, hey, if it's too much, no one plays it, if the deck's completely dead, then they will ease off a little bit in spring.
Mhm.
yeah, exactly as you said. I think it's very uncharacteristic of Bushiro to have like such heavy hits because like a lot of decks kind of I don't want to say it too early, but they're looking like pretty unplayable from like top decks to going that far. Like because a lot of hits before from Bushi Road, it's a lot less restrictive than what we saw this time. But yeah, it could be what you said, how we're getting more boundless and they're like trying to do stuff.
Yeah, and we're gonna be getting more sets, like Love Live Superstars just hit, Dragon Maid, I think, will come out before the spring adjustment of the ban list as well, so it may just be that with new decks coming in, that some of these restrictions can be eased off a touch as well. As far as playability for Sinfigure, I think Sinfigure it's just good enough of a deck that it comes away still playable.
It's playable. Again, I think the easiest fix is just to keep the 3/2 Shirabe. Go for the other combo route. Again, it's weaker than what you have right now, but again, there's not much you can do about it. It's not like the deck is completely dead or whatever. It's definitely not as strong for sure.
No. Is that all we have to say about Sinfigure?
Hmm.
I think so.
Perfect. Let's move on to Kaguya-sama. I actually think this is the one that probably might be the easiest to fix because there's a pretty easy replacement for K. you replace it with the runner that's also a reverse. So that's a pretty clean fix.
0-0 Kaguya.
Yeah, 0-0 Kaguya.
Uh-huh.
And that's a clean fix. And I think you still play Eye Bestowing Courage, because that's just a very nice card and it gets you out of some awkward positions against some of the other power wall decks that are in the format right now.
I'm not sure if it's like that easy of a fix, because having a 2K runner body that was also a clean cut was very, very powerful. And the Suicider runner like does fill a similar purpose, but I think it only runs to center slot, right?
Right.
So it's a weaker runner profile and it doesn't plus you like a clean cut effect would. So that's quite a big downgrade. But I think out of all the decks, Symphogear was, or not Symphogear, Kaguya was let off the easiest comparatively, because
Yeah.
the entire like top end of the deck is untouched. It's just the level zeros.
So to be fair, in my opinion, I think every other deck before the ban list, every other deck's level 0 is inferior to Kaguya's level 0.
Mhm.
Like Kaguya level 0 was just so good that nets you so many cards, so much advantage that it kind of carries you into the level 1, carries you to level 3. And this is why like they have like a huge play rate. They had an 11% play rate in the WGP all for the months, and it has one of the highest topping rates in the WGP.
Yeah, it was consistent over about a year, which is incredible when we consider some of the other sets that came out this year, including Mushoku Tensei, which can be downright oppressive, and the aforementioned Symphogear, which bordered on tier 0.
Yeah, Symphogear was there for only 6 months. This one and the next one that we'll talk about, Datalive, and has been around for like at least a year. I think the quickest fix is just to keep the eye, drop search. That's probably the best of the three you have. Replacing the K like Slowbro said, I think it's not the best, but if you really want to run the profile, it is what it is. And of course, it's not as good as a going second card, because the clean cut is a much better. When you go in second, you just clean cut it back to the back row card that you have.
Yeah, and Kaguya's level 0 was incredible. Do you think the level 0 has been negged hard enough that it might actually put the rest of the house in danger? That maybe you don't get enough advantage to roll into level 1 and then roll off into your early plays and then finally your nice finish.
Yeah, I think it's gonna have like a big butterfly effect here, because, as Anzu said earlier, like Kaguya really relies on the level 0 to be strong to kind of snowball into the rest of the game, because it's played a pseudo standby playstyle, while most decks did, where you play 4 standby triggers and the gate trigger for the level 3 finisher. While the level 3 finisher is still incredibly strong, your level 1 combo is an on reverse profile that's only 5k power, and it's on a standby trigger, so it's not like it gets power from a 1k1. And you're missing a lot of power pump, losing that's the Chika Riki, right?
Yeah.
The one that also pumps power. Yeah, you're missing a lot of like power modulation from that, so the level 1 becomes less consistent. And since you're only playing 4 standby, I don't think you can really expect to control the board as well as 8 standby decks did. So yeah, it's definitely going to have a big effect. But considering that Kaguya was one of the decks that was like really competing with Symphogear, like it was pretty much, from my observations, like Symphogear and Kaguya competing for like those top slots. I think the deck will still be fairly strong, but not quite as oppressive as before.
Yeah, like you said, I've been losing the 2K from the Ricky, the 2K pump, kind of hurts the level 1 and level 3 game, because again, the Kaguya from level 1, level 3 has to reverse.
Yeah.
So if you don't reverse, it's kind of sad. I mean, one of the ways you can go around is to play the level 0 U, which has the U kill profile. On attack, you can give 2K to a character. So that helps with the power, and also has a pay 1 to move to the back row, which if I play a lot of million life, and I don't really use the pay 1 to move to the back, but the 2K actually helps more often than you think. But of course, not as nice as the Ricky that gives 2K.
And I think Kaguya is, again, even despite a band that takes away some powerful tools from the deck, I think it's still playable. And You'd probably still win a local tournament with it, to be honest.
You can win locals with anything though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's just the power pump isn't there. So, sometimes you might run into the problem of saying, if the guy backups, I cannot reverse it. Instead of like, oh, I pump 2K is way bigger than your backup can be anyway, so I don't care.
Yeah. So it's like I think this is a deck that now has more trouble with decks like Mushoku and because it does rely on I guess it's mostly power on turn, so maybe it worries about Niji Kasaki a bit more, but it's not existential, yeah.
Yeah. Anything that gives you like a power pump off turn, again, Kanbaru profile, might give you a little bit trouble, but not a lot of people play those profiles anymore, so might be able to sneak it in.
Yeah, so I think Kaguya is definitely still something you could take and have a fun time with.
I'm just glad I don't have to deal with the clean cut and runner anymore. It was
Yeah.
downright depressing when they opened that, and then you drew like a brick at level 0. That was, oof.
They get so much advantage, and you're just sitting there, but like, how do I even recover from this?
Yeah, it's that K was an incredible card, and I'm still a little surprised it was printed, to be honest. That's like, let's take two of the best profiles we print at level 0, a clean cut and a good runner, and put them on the same card. Easy.
Well, they figure if it's a mill runner, so you can miss, right? If you hit the CX,
That's copium.
That's
Yep.
total copium. So yeah, well, the last two decks are still playable. The next deck, Datalive, it got screwed.
Oh yeah.
I think if you say a standby, yes.
Yes.
I think a lot of people are starting to think about what they can do with Data Live besides that, because again, Data Bullet came out. Of course, Data Live, the set was so strong that even when Data Bullet came out, no one really cared. They still play the 32 Korubi, 4 copies, still play the 8 standby, but now they really have to think about it.
And here's the thing, I think Yoshino ending up on the restriction list is what kills this. Because that is such a strong card for being a control play. Because Data Live relies so much on your opponent having to think about, do I even want to attack here? Because Yoshino can force a trade. Losing a trade on a reverse means that Toka gets to damage Scry. And now that you've got your deck can't have both of those cards, and your like even your finisher being limited to 2 might not even be the end of the world. It sucks, but if you can get that card out of stock, you play 2 plus the Icy Tail anyway, and it's less consistent, but it's doable. Using Yoshino because you pretty much have to play Toka sucks.
Yeah, I think they're actually really smart on the limit 2 on Kurumi. The sense that the limit 2 is right on the border of this deck is completely unplayable, and the border of I can actually play this deck a little bit more. So a lot of people are like, hey, I can play this deck a little bit more. We can just change it up. And a lot of people were like, whatever. So, and it's actually funny because it has been 3 years since they ever had limited X on a card. So we're not talking about limit 0 where they completely ban a card, but they have limited 2, and they haven't done this for a long time. And I feel like because they limit that to 2 is the reason why Yoshino was added to the 3 choose 1 now became the 4 choose 1. If they just outright ban Kurumi, I think Yoshino would just be off the list.
Yeah, but if they outright ban Kurumi, then yeah, the 8 standby deck is dead.
Of course.
So yeah, you're right. There's no reason to put the Yoshino on the choose. And I guess that comes to the interesting question is, do we play like a Data Bullet top end, or is it another one of the alternate finishers from first Data Live, like maybe the Toka or the other blue finisher?
I think you might just go back to a choice standby. Add in some of the Data Bullet stuff. You can still play the 3-2 Kurumi, but then that also allows you to play. You're actually now picking the My Little Shido event instead because you have yellow. You can add in the Riki from the new set, which helps, and then you can also play the other Kurumi Brainstorm. Again, not as strong as the Toka Brainstorm because the Toka Brainstorm was a very good card for a standby. Every time you can just bounce. Every time you plop a standby down, you bounce it back to your hand, give plus 1,000, right? So that's a very strong profile that fits with like the standby profile.
Yeah. And it's funny because going back to your article about the colors of Weiss, Toka, Yoshino, and sorry, the Toka that's the damage grind plus 1,500 on an opponent's turn. The Toka that you can bounce back to your hand, give something 1,000 until the end of your opponent's turn, and Yoshino, which moves on the opponent's turn. They're very blue cards. Like they're cards that just make your opponent's turn suck.
Yeah, Bushiroad's 4-choose-1 this time really made sure that a standby is not a thing anymore. I'd be very interested to see like if someone can still pull off a standby deck with current build, even with data bullet considered.
I think you can still quote unquote pull it off. I can see it. Maybe you want to pivot to the playing the Toka standby combo, because before you played the vanilla standby 8 standby, right? But you can
Yeah.
actually maybe choose to play the Toka that combos with it, so that you can have like a more aggressive play style. And I think it works. However, I think it's terrible in the current metagame environment, and that's because Datalive was a standby deck that, after the first ban list, really sucked at contesting power versus other standby decks. And
Yeah.
how the metagame's looking to shape up after the ban list is a lot of powerful standby decks are moving up with the restrictions on Symphogear and Kaguya. So that gives 8 standby Datalive after these heavy hits, like I think the deck can function, but it's very terrible into the meta game. And I definitely do agree, if the Yoshino wasn't hit and just Kirby was limited to 2, that's a far more reasonable hit. And you could maybe play around with some interesting level 3 options as well. Like, obviously, you could include more of the Icy Tail, but there's also a Kotori that's just free when it attacks, top check for character, burn 1. That's an interesting standby target that you can play around with if you have more level 3 space as well. But yeah, Yoshino being on the list just completely kills it. And as far as Day Bullet goes, the hits actually affect Day Bullet, because Day Bullet builds, or at least in the build that I ran, you do want to play the yellow event and the Yoshino. So they're both on the list, so you do have to make adjustments for that. But overall, yeah, that deck is viable. I don't think it's super amazing though. It's a very consistent deck with a lot of neat toolboxing, but the ceiling on it isn't quite as high as the 8 standby deck. And I think one of the winners from this ban list is Grisaya, as they were kind of, I think, sitting around a tier 2 area, but now with some of the top decks on, they can move up a bit. And anti-heal completely stops the Day Bullet engine, because you have to clock swap, you add cards to clock, and then you heal them. But then if an opponent has anti-heal active, you can't do that at all. So there's always that to consider.
Yeah. With what we're talking about, the metagame moving up, even in English, Datalive can't contest field. Especially if Mushoku's coming to English, so
Mushoku is one of the builds, just like when I play Nijigasaki. Nijigasaki is a very power build. Even against other 8 standby, I can still, even if I lose off turn, I definitely will win on turn for sure. The Mushoku has that power to a level 3. Just a level 2 goes to level 3, that gives you minus power, just completely wrecks your field. So not having that power to go off on for Datalive is like what you guys have said. It's definitely rougher than before.
this deck's dead in the water.
I think the build is. I don't think the set itself is dead. Again, number one, the bullet is still there, so people will figure out something. And number two, season 4 is coming out very soon on the anime, so hey, they can always just print another set in the future.
That's fair. That's fair.
I don't even think the set's gone to like season 2. This is like season 1 stuff in the first set, and Day Bullet was the movie set. So they have a lot of stuff they can print.
We have a lot of stuff then.
Run up the card printers, Bushy Road. All right, so let's talk Cinderella Girls. Do you think people will play this now that the deck gets a lot more consistent, getting Rin Shibuya and Kome back?
They will play it, but I don't think it will make a splash in the current meta at all. Deck is kind of outdated. Kome is a very good card, don't get me wrong, but again, it's just there to fish you the CX that you want without any You don't have to pay a real cost. If you miss, then you don't have to pay anything, and that's fine. Having the Rin was always the pick out of the two on a 2 choose 1. So you just don't play the Komei. So it's really just adding the Komei back into your deck. Will I run Komei again? Yes. But do I expect it out top in the low, even the low coast with Cinderella Girls? No.
Top end's just not big enough anymore.
Top end's okay. Like, top end's just not very big. I mean, if I remember correctly, it's been at least a year or two since I played it. You have your 3/2 Rin in the middle. The TP Rin will go to 14/5. The side character is a little bit smaller unless you try lane it. But even if you try lane the TP Rin, the size are a little bit smaller because the power pumps goes to the middle. 14/5, it's pretty decent. But again, nowadays a lot of sets can easily pump power just to get over that to wreck it, right? So, and in the end, you're playing Power of Smile Rin with the restand ability. Restand ability is okay. Like, it's not the worst. It's not, but it's nothing to write home about. At the same time, it lacks a real alternative way to win because it's still, in the end, it's still like a turtling deck where you heal. Just try to stay at level 2 as long as possible. Early play heal, early play heal.
Yeah, and it just compared to the modern decks that do that, it doesn't do that good enough.
I think it's a fun deck to play. I will probably take it out, give it a spin a couple more times now that it's unrestricted, but I really don't think it will make any of a splash in the current meta.
I think the problem lies with the early game engine. Obviously, the level 0 utility is excellent, but your level 1s, you only get one search a turn for your plussing combo, and it's on a stock soul. And your like climax triggers are not very good. It's like pants stock soul, right?
Mm-hmm. And you're hoping for the best from the brainstorm because it back in the days was huge because it's like, oh, I can brainstorm 5, but nowadays it's like, sure, I give you another card. If you're gonna miss, you're gonna miss.
Yeah, like the brainstorm's excellent, but the triggers aren't good. The level 1 advantage combo isn't quite good, especially with standby being so prevalent now, right? I think your 1/0 only hits like 7k, and it's a stock soul climax.
Yeah.
And TP Rin, there's a lot more answers to TP Rin nowadays compared to back then, so it's not a hard card to out.
Mm-hmm. Especially when Busher start printing all the anti-change cards, especially level 1 anti-change cards now. So your early play level 3 to TP Rin isn't that big of a deal as before.
Yeah, exactly. And the finisher was a restander, if I remember correctly, but it restands when another character attacks, right?
Yeah.
So memory kick counters are really popular right now, especially in a lot of standby decks, and I think Bushoku has a tap counter as well. So that kind of ruins the top end a little bit.
Yeah, and it's kind of expensive for a restand at pay 3, ditch 1.
Yeah, it's not, but that's all you have, so you do have to pay for that.
So, yeah, no. And honestly, I don't think Monogatari is going to do much either. It's just really funny that it took this long for the last 2 cards to come off the ban list.
It's the same issue as Cinderella Girls. Like the cards that were powerful at the time just don't hold the same amount of power in today's Weiss Schwarz. Like the 2/2 that generates stock and hits 9/5. Like 9/5 is not that big at level 2 anymore. And back then, like a lot of decks didn't play for level 2 because most decks were like level 3 all-in combo decks. But nowadays, a lot of decks do play for field. A lot of decks have a level 2 game plan, and like the power benchmark has risen so much higher, just not as good as it anymore.
Yeah, especially like you said, level 2 is really play, especially when you play standby. Like you said, if you play a 9/5, I would just laugh, like, cool, 9/5, right? Because my 2/2 in the front easily can be like 10k, 10/5 without backups.
There's even decks that their level 1 can contest 9/5 without too much of an issue. 9/5 is just not big enough.
No, and that's probably the reason why this and Cinderella Girls came down the list because it's just not a thing to be afraid of anymore.
Yeah, so I don't see anyone busting out Monogatari. Love Live Sunshine.
Love Live Sunshine is interesting. Again, I also played the deck. So they've brought back the Mari. The Mari, when I was playing the Mari, it really, all it does is number one, it gives power. You don't really need to reverse anything in your build of the 8 standby build that we used to run, even the standby gate. So, but power is power. And then on reverse, it bounces back to hand. So, if it's level 2 or higher, if you check top. So it's nice to have. Really, the biggest thing was to check top, to make sure that I don't hit the 6 on my first attack out of my 3 attacks. Or, if I hit a standby, that I at least have to have something to think about. So I will see people playing that 1-0 Mari again, just to have the check top ability, pump power. But I think it won't move Sunshine up very high in the current meta. Sunshine's been doing decently okay. You see 1 or 2 people, they top every so often. And they'd be like, "Oh, people are still playing Sunshine, amazing." But I will move it to like tier 1 back in the days. I highly doubt it.
Yeah, I think the only thing that probably moves Sunshine back, like a tier people are going to be talking about, is if you're allowed to have 4 copies of Yo again.
I mean, sure, then you probably play the rewrite ticket combo once again. But yeah, I think unless they do, even if they take the whole thing, if they take the 3 choose 1, of course, count the Amari, and then give you back the Yo in full power, I think it will still be like a very low tier 1 and like a very high tier 2 deck. It wouldn't be like one of the top decks you play. Again, from the 2-3 years that we've had this set, things have moved on.
But it's still pretty impressive that it's been been around for as long as it has, and you could take cards off the ban list and make it something people would want to play, which does speak to the quality of the card pool.
True. I mean, any sets when they have a card that comes off the restriction, people want to play the set again. Like for example, like I said, I want to play CG again, but again, I don't expect it to top.
Yeah, no kidding, no kidding. Fate, we get the heal event back. And what's funny is that is a very important part of that deck, but I'm not sure if Rider rides again.
No, I'm pretty sure. In my opinion, I think that the 4 choose 1 again. You put the event back, give the event back to the people, but the restriction from the 4 choose 1 is still such a big grip on the set itself. I don't see the 3/3 event helping at all.
Yeah. And that's funny because they even printed a card, I think in Heaven's Healed Part 2, that is basically just the Ilya Akatsuki that's on the choose 4. So you get a synthetic out, but it's still a very heavy restriction because you can't play that really nice Shiro that goes to memory and the free fresher in the same deck, which slows you down immensely.
Wait, can you play the new Akatsuki?
I think you can.
Is the new Akatsuki part of
Aren't they the same card?
they are it is the
Oh,
same
they
card,
are the
is it
same
not?
card. Okay.
Yeah, they are the same card.
Okay, so it isn't a synthetic out.
Yeah, I think for Fate to rise, you have to either take the free fresh or the Akatsuki out from the choose. The heal event's nice, but people only play like 1 or 2 copies anyways, so it's not like
Mhm.
it was a card you saw every game, and it's not a card that's good in every situation. The deck's claim to fame was its consistency and its ability to just recur resources while getting the heal because of the free fresh, right? Your
Yeah.
Akatsuki helps you mill down, and then you can free fresh and draw a card off it. So that was very powerful because it was essentially a 1 stock heal that also replaced a card in your hand. I think the deck also kind of became unplayable when Datalive became the top deck in the metagame because almost every early Datalive list played a bunch of the Shido Blinker, and that completely killed Rider. Since you just blink the Rider and it loses the Climax combo. Datalive obviously, like we said, got hit very hard and it isn't as prevalent anymore. I'm not sure what other sets really play a blink profile, but even with that, I'm not sure if Rider does have the same presence as it did before.
Can Ryder get over Mushoku?
When you use the combo, it gives the opposing character across decreased power, if I remember correctly. But I'm
Yeah.
not
They
sure.
also cannot front, right?
Right.
Yeah. But the thing is, it has to live your turn.
But again, even if you have multiple name escape my mind right now. The card that gives minus power. Even if you play multiple copies of that, pump it up with Paro. I think just because you can't front, you still cannot contest the wall if you have the
Right.
rider wall up.
Yeah, because Mushoku doesn't have a blank.
No. And unless I don't know the math top of my head, unless you can play like 3 of those and then minus enough power so the rider dies. But again, I don't have the math top of my head to know if that's possible or not.
Oh, you're talking about the Mushoku card that minuses power?
Yeah, the green one. Yeah.
I don't think most Mushoku lists play that anyways. Like, obviously it has some presence, but I think most lists
Mhm.
are on standby now, right, for Mushoku?
Most lists do play the 8 standby. The winner deck. Sorry, not the winner. The third place deck did play 8 standby. But you're right. I'm looking at right now, they don't even play that minus power.
Yeah. I think the combo's good, but yeah, it seems like the Mushoku playstyle has been lending to 8 standby.
Mm-hmm.
So Crayon Shin-Chan meta, right, guys?
That I'm not even sure if that's copium at that point. You might be inhaling some brand new drug.
I don't know. I think isn't Shin-Chan still banned? The action Kamen still banned in what should we call it, standard, right?
He is still banned in standard.
It's also still banned inside, so
Mm,
unfortunate.
unfortunate. Well, because in standard, action common is disgusting.
Is it though? Again, I haven't looked at standard for so long. All we play is Neo standard, so
Come on, I think there's people have figured out how to do like a turn 1 or turn 2 Doctor Strange win in standard. So the format's
I guess you
broken,
could
but
stand by out like action common and like turn 1 and somehow turn 1 or turn 2 or something like that and just attack with 2 so 500
the other
maybe.
thing,
But again, we're
yeah.
talking about standards. So
I should really look into how standard like combos work because like even if you have access to the card pool, I wouldn't think Weiss is a game you can really do those combos in, but people have made it work. So
Oh, there
I
are
guess
many infinites in standard, and one of the gentleman's agreements in people who still play standard is you don't do them. I think if you wanted to resurrect standard, you would have to do something like the original Commander format in Magic the Gathering, where you basically say, this card isn't fun, it's banned. And just do that
they would
normally.
have to rethink the ban list. I think standard is such a small thing, not things that Bushiroad thinks about. They don't try to fix it. They just, but they also at the same time kind of funny. They don't kill it because it's just like, yeah, standard, cool.
you could also apply like a loop restriction if infinite combos a little worry. Like maybe you can only do a loop X amount of times.
The rule I've heard people use is if you can't guarantee that this loop will resolve in a finite amount of turns, and B, in your opponent losing, you lose, which is fair.
Which is, I guess, is fair. I mean, in Magic, infinites do exist, especially when you play formats that are older. Commander has infinites. Infinites usually one of the bigger indicator of how good your deck is. If your deck has infinites, usually is much better than ones that does not. But at the same time, in Magic, we also say for infinite we can stop somewhere. For example, I'm just going to generate 1,000 mana, right?
Yeah.
Something ridiculous. I'm just going to get 2,000 life.
Right, you have to declare a finite amount.
But so I don't know if you can do that for Weiss. I feel like maybe. Again, I haven't looked into any of this in standard.
Yeah. As for Neo Standard, the rest of Crayon Shin-Chan is suffering. No one's going to play it.
Yeah, I don't think it's kind of funny how it took them this long to bring it back. Yeah, it took them quite a while to bring it back. We always just thought that hey, no one cares about it, and they just leave it. So I guess they just put it back and just be like, have fun.
Well, what's incredible is as soon as I heard that Action Kamen was unbanned, I went straight to Yute. You're like, yeah, they've got stock of him. He's like 100 yen. Look, sold out, $30.
Yeah, they're much more expensive now. I looked at the day after it was like 1,700. It's like one copy left or something like that. I'm just like, wow.
Like,
Should
oh,
have bought those. Should have bought all the copies at 100 yen.
yeah, it's like I should have bought them the last time we did a UUT order because and just being a dick about it, but no.
To be fair, even if I thought about buying it, but I was like, at the same time, I also thought, even if I buy like 20 copies of it, like, what am I going to do with it? Like, I can sell it for money, sure, but like, am I going to play Shin-Chan because like Action Kamen is now unlimited? Probably not.
I might build the deck on a lark, but it's like it's just like the funny haha, let's pull out Crayon Shin-Chan in the same vein as haha, I'm gonna pull out Lucky Star.
Yeah. Haha, I got 3 Action Kamen in the front row, and I have like 3 of them, so I can attack you for 2 souls, 7-5.
I don't know, maybe there is like a universe where you could just cycle action commons in a stock efficient way and just smash like 2 soul plus a 2 soul every turn and just be a massive
Mm,
asshole with soul rushing.
Perhaps Slow Rush every so often comes back. They try to fix Soul Rush, but again, Wise is the game where you try to compress your deck. The longer the match drags out, Soul Rush gets weaker and weaker because your opponent's is so well compressed. At least you're trying to anyway. So
At this point, I'm just trying to throw stupid ideas where action comment is free is a fun thing to talk about.
I haven't. I checked on Twitter for like a day or two after the ban list. No one talked about Action Comment at all.
Oh
Some
no.
people talk about, oh, now I can play CG. Some now I can play Gatari again. But right, but
No
no one
one.
really talked about Shin-Chan. No one really talked about Fate.
Yeah. Going to the last card that I thought would never come off a ban list was World of Faded Colors out of Haruhi that allows you to sack a character salvage 2, which led to some fun combos. Do you think that this might actually see play in Haruhi decks that have cards up through Sneaker Bunko?
Well, it's limit 1, right?
It's
So
limit 1, so it's
does it
not
help?
enough.
I don't know. You can't bond to it. You can't search. You cannot. You have to naturally draw into it. It doesn't have any of the new tools. Like I don't know about I don't remember Sneaker Bunko, but it doesn't have any new tools like the new Akatsuki that we see. You can take anything that's level 1 or higher into your hand with Akatsuki on death. So it doesn't have stuff like that. So I feel like the only way to get the 2/1 into your hand is naturally draw into it, and that's rough with 1 copy.
Well, it's not happening.
Well, it's a card you just throw in there because you might as well. It's a good card.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Will it make a big impact? Not really. I think with the power up stuff and the sneaker book and stuff, like Haruhi isn't a completely suffering deck. Like it is super playable. It's just not very good.
It's outdated, unfortunately. Maybe it needs the movie set, something like that.
It's like I think they're still using the on attack burn one from the first set as their finisher because they even Sneaker Bunko didn't give them much.
Doesn't the new finisher combo with the same CX? Isn't that one?
It does, and it also combos
Right.
with the same card because you can bring it out again.
Right.
So you can attack multiple, like more than 3 times, and like every time you attack, you're burning. So it does give you a little bit more ways to finish your game with.
That combo is quite scary if you pull it off. But it's random. That's the problem.
Yeah, the problem is random, but if it when it rolls, it rolls.
All right, so we've gone through all the changes on the ban list for this winter 2021. So, who do we think are the biggest winners? Because we've already said who the biggest loser was.
Well, anytime you ban something or you restrict something, those are going to be losers.
Yeah.
So, to be fair, I feel like it's pretty fair how they restricted it this time. Just from the 3 set, they left a much weaker playing route for Symphogear. They make you think a little bit more playing Kaguya because of the power problem that you have. And Dao, to be fair, Dao was like the strongest set in 2020, in my opinion. And when they limited, it was just a slap in the hand. It just wasn't that big. So this time they've completely killed one of the ways, the strongest way, of course, the 8 standby. But there still exists other ways to play. So they haven't like really done enough to completely kill a set off. It's not like we see Fate with like the 5 choose one. It's like, well, who plays Fate nowadays, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like the ban list itself is quite fair. Of course, if it goes to anything that's way too strict and no one plays it, and everybody's complaining again. That's what spring is for. As for the winners, I guess the unrestrictions are usually the winners, right? Because again, this time it is the biggest deregulation in history of Weiss that they have just gave us so many cards back. Just here, have a card. Here's all the things unrestricted here. So it's pretty interesting that way.
I think I would say again the hits are more heavy-handed this time compared to before, but I
Mhm.
do agree
Yeah.
it's fair that they hit Sinful and Kaguya because those two were like very clearly the outstanding decks. I think
Mhm.
the Datalive hit is a bit random. But obviously, Datalive was still a very strong deck, but I don't think it was quite the same level as Symphogear and Kaguya, and like two key cards got hit, which like kind of killed 8 standby. So that was like a bit random in my opinion.
Yeah, live was just in my opinion, it just represented very well. I think for the first half of this year, before Symphogear came out, it was just mainly Day Alive, and then you play Kaguya, and then Kaguya was kind of there. Day Alive was still having such a strong showing, and then of course when Symphogear came out, well, everybody moves to the new hot list Symphogear, but at the same time, people were still playing Day Alive, right?
Yeah. I guess it's kind of one of those decks where it's like it's been good for so long, they're just like gonna get it out of the way a little bit, especially if new sets are
Mhm.
coming out soon.
And I guess they were pretty annoyed that nobody was playing Data Bullet.
Well, again, the Kurumi 3-2 is just so good. Why would you need to play anything else?
Pretty much.
Why would you play the new Kirby when you have Kurumi at home? That's better.
Pretty much.
I mean, now you might think about it, but again, even the 2 copies is not the worst. Obviously, 3 copies the best, right? But
Yeah, the two copies isn't what kills the deck. It's the Yoshino for
yeah.
sure. Like the
Mhm.
Yoshino being on there is so terrible.
Well, I'm making you choose between the Yoshino and the level 0 brainstorm. I
Yeah,
feel
the
like it's pretty
brainstorm.
big. Yeah.
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 I think as for big winners, I think off the top of my head, as Kevin mentioned previously, Slime, Mushoku, Nijigasaki, like all big standby decks. I think 8 choice Slime can move up, but that deck gets ruined by Memory Kick. And somewhat tap counter as well. What else? I think Grisaya,
And
like I said.
quintuplet, I
Quince.
think,
Yeah,
8
Quince.
gate.
Vince.
Yeah. I think all the tier 2 decks definitely celebrate, like stuff like Sordar, Ilya, the Capo. I think
Mhm.
removing the top two, like the clear top 2 decks, definitely like balances out the decks in the middle a lot more. So any like deck in the tier 2 range will be pretty happy after the ban list.
Yeah.
So you also now don't have to splash into anti-change. Like I play Nijigasaki, but I still splash into 2-1 anti-change because of the level 3 combos that exist, right? For Symphogear that comes out early that I have
Yeah.
to deal with. And now I probably would just put back the 3k 3-5 counter instead. I don't have to deal with that. There's definitely a lot. I think there's definitely a little bit of a shift from the past couple months. A lot of decks just sided in the 2-5 anti-change. Because again, just in case you play Symphogear, you have to deal with that somehow.
Yeah.
I think anti-change is one of those things where if your opponent doesn't see it coming, it can like mess with them really badly. But
Mhm.
not every deck can support it because a lot of anti-change counters are very resource heavy. So if you
Yep.
are a deck that's like playing for a level 3 combo, even if you disrupt your opponent, let's say you have 6 stock and then you suddenly go down to 3, like you can't combo yourself. So was it really worth it? But since a lot of decks stopped playing it, the decks that can support anti-change, especially since it was good into the meta, it was a very strong tool.
Mhm.
I don't play the meta Ilya, I play standby Ilya, and Ilya has like an amazing anti-change counter. It's the instead of pay 2 ditch 1, it's pay 1 ditch 1 sack 1, and you can catch so many people off guard with that, and it's so cheap and so efficient.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Well, even the pay to sack a character anti-change, that's still a lot. It's still pretty popular, but after the ban list, I probably will take that off. Like I said, off my Nijigasaki deck, because again, I don't have to worry about that from Symphogear.
Yeah, it's more of a meta call depending on what you
Yeah.
play against.
Hmm
Is there anything that you guys were surprised that didn't get hit?
I don't think anything else really needs to get hit.
I I don't think either. Just basically, Bushiroad generally hit sets that are well represented or tops often. So they've hit the three sets that have been really well represented slash tops often. Some you might say, hey, maybe they should think about Mushoku or think about Quint, but Mushoku and Quint was doing well enough, but they kind of stayed under the radar. So now is their time to shine, of course, but of course new sets are also coming out, so it'll be interesting to see, if Mushoku or Quint will end up in the next ban list. Right now, I don't think they will, unless for some reason no one can deal with Mushoku or Quint.
Yeah, like if Mushoku can just start tearing things up in the new year, then we'll probably think about it. But again, it remains to be seen what gets printed in like Dragon Maid or what other new sets are coming out.
Yeah, some of the recent sets they're pretty good. Like Superstar looks pretty strong. I mean, it's not busted strong. We have older sets like They Become a God. They're pretty good too.
There's a lot of balls in the air, but I think yeah, all those tier 2 decks are cheering.
As usual, when the tier one gets hit, the tier two moves up a little
Yeah.
bit.
And it's funny because I think the last like we're currently at the end of WGP qualifiers, and I'm not sure this will go up before Calgary's event happens, but this ban list isn't going to affect that, and Calgary's the last WGP qualifier. Do we know if this ban list is going to affect WGP North American Nationals or?
It will definitely affect it
Okay,
because
perfect.
Nationals is in January. So the verdict from Heart of the Card is that you look at the date of when the tournament is. So, for example, the ban list goes live on the 13th. So you have to follow that with your local time
Right.
instead of following that with your Japan time. So that's one of the reasons why our local in Calgary is not hits because it's on the 12th. So officially the ban list for us it starts on the 13th, like Calgary time, not Japan time.
Makes sense. Cool. Alrighty. So that about wraps us up for today. We hope you enjoyed listening to us talk about changes to the Japanese ban list and their implications because we sure enjoyed talking about it. If you did, make sure to subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, iTunes, and Google Podcasts. Search Wild Wild Weiss. If you want to check out our written work, head on over to wildwildweiss.wordpress.com. Find our videos on YouTube. Search Wild Wild Weiss. Follow us on Twitter at Wild Wild Weiss. Join our Twitch for some live action. Wild Wild Weiss, or check out the Calgary Weiss Schwarz community on Facebook or Discord. Before we sign off, do you guys have any plugs that you want to put out there?
I want my set to Dara stage, please. Please Bushiro.
Wish you.
Is there any set that you want? You want there, Slowbro?
uh, I think out of everything they've announced, there's nothing that really interests me. So I
That's
think my wallet's safe for a while. But I am excited to test the new DC cards, even though they only gave us a few. So we'll see how that goes.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's enough.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm hoping to run one more episode, probably an interview before the end of the year. You'll stick around for that as well. If this is our last episode before the end of the year, happy holidays, and we wish you a happy 2022 from Wild Wild Weiss. Until next time, this has been Igor Squatslav,
This is Slowbro.
This is AnzuP. Remember to sit down for Weiss Schwarz.
and I hope to see y'all next time.